Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 200, The Mirror of Life, How Our Choices Reflect Who We Are. Well, welcome back to our discussion about how owning your choices is foundational for self-esteem, and I think necessary for good relationships with ourselves and others. So far this month, if you've hung out with us, you know that we've discussed how important our choices are to our self-confidence, and that means around our behavior and what and who we choose to have around us, because they can have huge impacts on our self-confidence and, I think, our quality of life. Well, this week I want to look at just what we pick to focus on, the solution, the person, ourselves, etc., and how our choices really do reflect who we are and I think where we are in terms of our self-love. In other words, folks looking in on your life from the outside, what would they see that your choices are and why? But before we get into this juicy topic, I want to take a moment to celebrate the milestone of 200 episodes. I can't believe it, and the time has flown by so fast. I want to stop and express my gratitude to each and every one of you for making this possible. By sharing your journey with me, your stories, your struggles, and how the show has helped you feel more validated some days, challenged other days, and that you felt that I was here to help you grow, and that is priceless to me. You have validated for me just how important personal growth is, and how we need to continue talking about these topics because they really do influence how healthy our life is and how healthy we are for others. So thank you, thank you. Okay, so this week we get into the concept of how our choices show what and who we are. Again, if someone was looking in on your life today, what might they see? So the choices we make in life can have a really profound impact on our happiness, our success, our relationships. Even though intellectually I think we all know that, I think we can be blind to where we are, if we were honest. Because choices really show up in the areas of boundaries, self-care, who we have around us, and how we impact our world. So if someone was taking a look at your life today, there are several signs they could observe that would indicate that you have good boundaries. For example, number one, you prioritize your self-care, and that is evident. You have good boundaries. You prioritize taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, like we've talked a lot about on the show. This means that you actually make time for activities that help you feel refreshed and rejuvenated, and that you avoid overcommitting or neglecting your own needs. And this doesn't mean you're doing this perfectly. It just means that someone looking at your life is not seeing you crazy, running around like a chicken, overwhelmed. They're not seeing you complain about how you can't get anything done and how you have no time for yourself because you're taking time for yourself. So looking at your boundaries, your internal boundaries, I call them, they're your self-discipline because in order to take care of ourselves, we have to become more comfortable saying no to things. So even if you are doing a half-decent job of this, it's better than doing none at all, and I want you to think about that. When you're having a tough week, and you piled too much on or had a hard time saying no to someone, it's okay. Every day you wake up, you get a chance to do it even better. The other boundary work is that you communicate assertively. Good boundaries require clear communication. If you have good boundaries, you're able to express your needs and your preferences assertively and lovingly without being aggressive or passive-aggressive. So in other words, you're able to set limits with other people in a respectful and effective way. You're not guilting, you're not manipulating, you're not acting out, you're not shutting down, and you're not stuffing your feelings. In turn, you respect other people's boundaries. Good boundaries go both ways. If you have good boundaries, then you're able to recognize and respect the boundaries of other people. That's how it works. Usually we do this inside out, guys. Usually we're a lot more concerned about our own no and our own hell no than we are about others. And so saying no and hearing no go together, but usually we learn how to say no first, define who we are in terms of where others begin and we end. Then after we've done some work on that and that feels really good, we naturally then want to respect that for other people as well. So this means you really work on how you might control and manipulate other people, even in very subtle and insidious ways like begging, asking 3 times, pouting, making them feel like shit when they say no, because you're avoiding crossing their boundaries without their permission as well. You ask people's opinion before you go and do something that's a partnership piece. You don't go say yes to things without your partner's okay. You don't go through people's things. You know where you end and others truly begin, around their thoughts and their feelings and their needs, just as you want others to respect your own. Okay. Along with this, you have a strong sense of identity. Okay, if you have good boundaries, you have a strong sense of who you are and what you stand for. All that belief and values work that we talk about here. That way you're not as easily swayed by others' opinions and expectations. And you're able to make choices that you feel align with your values and your goals and with who you are and or who you want to be. We don't have to be there yet. This is how we get there, people. We're like, I want to be more organized. Or I want to be less chaotic and have better boundaries. So that means, if that's a value of mine, I got to work on that. I got to work on saying no. I got to get support around me around being able to say no to tough people and tough situations. You have good boundaries if you have healthy relationships or relatively healthy relationships. Good boundaries are essential. They're foundational. I say that all the time. If you have good boundaries, you are able to establish and maintain healthier relationships with others. That's because you're able to trust and be trusted. You're able to respect and be respected. You can navigate conflict and disagreements in a constructive way. So therefore, it doesn't have to be drama. It doesn't have to be a lot of conflict, a lot of really unhealthy, toxic stuff going on between the two of you. Or at least you're not doing that. You're trustworthy. They know they can count on your walk matching your talk. You're pretty consistent with who you are. You take responsibility for yourself. That's all boundary work. Here are some other things that people, if they were looking at your life, would see. Okay, in terms of responsibility for your choices. For example, they notice that you don't blame others for your mistakes, like we talked about last month. You take responsibility for your choices the best you can. And you really try not to blame other people when things go wrong. You might do that in the first 2 seconds, and then you're like, okay, wait a minute. What's my part? Instead, you accept that you made a mistake, perhaps, and you take steps to learn from it and make things right. You take ownership, in other words. You learn from your experiences. If you take responsibility for your choices, you're willing to learn from your experiences, both positive and negative. And I want to stop here and remind us that in order to be able to do that better, you have to do some healing work on the inside. You can't be full of shame and unresolved trauma stuff that you haven't looked at, because you're not going to be able to handle taking any constructive criticism in. God forbid, look at it and own it, because you have a skewed self-concept. In other words, if I make a mistake, I'm bad. That perfectionism stuff. As opposed to when you do some healing work and you know that you're a good, kind, loving, smart, caring person who in the past has been wounded, and that's why they, let's say, were careless or defensive or procrastinated or were disorganized. A lot of that is trauma-informed, we now know. So therefore, today, you understand that, but that doesn't mean you always have to be that way. And you're not less than. You just struggle with that for good reason. Remember, grabbing context. So today, you can reflect on your choices and their outcomes You can learn from your experiences. You can be imperfect and still work on yourself and still love yourself because you know that you can make better choices in the future. And that's huge. That's a process getting there. If you're not there yet, please don't be hard on yourself. Keep working on the healing. Get some healthy, strong people around you. Get a good coach if you need to. You can't do that work alone, but you can do it, and your life can change dramatically as you do. I watch people do this. Another thing that people looking in on your life will notice that you're proactive. One of the laws of boundaries is being proactive, not reactive. So in other words, you take responsibility for your choices, proactive to your approach to life, which means you take the initiative to make things happen rather than waiting for others to do it for you or for it to magically appear on a white horse. You're also willing to take a risk and try new things, knowing that the outcome is ultimately up to you. Like, if you don't go do this, you may not have that opportunity again. Your life won't be different until you start really taking some courageous steps to make that happen. This also, I think, means cause and effect, right? We have to look at short-term and long-term goals that we have. And things aren't going to happen in a vacuum, and they're not going to happen magically oftentimes. Not that there aren't miracles, but the day-to-day stuff we have to make happen. They also notice that you don't make excuses. If you take responsibility for your choices, you don't often make excuses for why things didn't work out because you're afraid someone's going to hate you or reject you. Instead, you own your choices and their outcomes, even if they're not what you hoped for. So if you blew it, you own it. And you learn from it. And you figure out what you can do differently going forward. But you don't rationalize and you don't couch it in a way that kind of tweaks the truth. You don't do that. And finally, you make amends when necessary. You own it. If you take responsibility for your choices, you're willing to make amends when necessary. Because if your choices harmed others, and sometimes we can hurt and harm people, you're willing to apologize and make things right to the best of your ability. In fact, the healthier you get, it's going to kill you not to do this. You want to clean it up because you want to make it right. You want to own it. You want to heal it with that person. Because the new you can't stand not doing that, if that makes sense. The old you was terrified of doing that. Terrified of owning it. What if they hate you? What if they shame you? What if they think you're awful? If you grew up with any kind of bullying, whether those were your neighborhood kids or your older brother or your parents can bully their kids. I think we're now finally starting to talk about that more. You're going to be afraid that it's not going to go well if you own up. One of the things you want to work on is owning up with safe people who are healthy and aren't going to react in inappropriate ways. That way you build the muscle for the big stuff with the harder people who are a lot more defensive, more immature, more anxiety driven. They're more reactive. So those are some things that people looking in on your life will see in terms of your boundary work. And your boundaries go hand in hand with your choices. I think healthy choices, that is. So overall, people looking in are going to see the choices you make for yourself. Do your choices align with your values and your goals? What about your choices in areas such as career, hobbies, personal development? Do they reflect who you are and what you stand for or where you're going? Like maybe you're not that person yet, but you're really working on that. Is that in alignment? Do they see you making choices that are brave? Like really working towards your goals or just talking about it? So does your walk match your talk in your life? Can you do the hard things, even if that hard thing is a self-discipline to eat healthier every day of the week as much as you can? Or save that money and not spend? Or say no to a toxic friendship? Those are the hard things. Do they see you doing the hard things, big and little? The other area they're going to look at are the choices that you make in your relationships. You know, if you look around right now, would they see your relationships reflect your new values and priorities or not? Usually this is a process where people start shedding, pulling away in healthy ways from people who just have not grown along with them. Maybe they're toxic, they're immature, they're passive aggressive. They are at the extent of where they want to be in their life. And maybe you want to grow. Maybe you want to do things differently. Maybe your worldview has changed. Maybe you grew up with a certain set of values kind of branded upon you, and you are starting to change that as you work on healing yourself. And yet the people that have been around you reflect the old values. It's really important that they see you setting boundaries and making choices that prioritize your well-being and happiness as well. Are you doing that self-care that we talked about earlier? Are you not losing yourself in relationships? Are you not abandoning yourself in your own needs? Are you partnering well? Are you treating others well? Are you doing boundary work around respecting others? Are you showing more interest in others? Are you checking on people? Are you trying to work on being more in the moment with the people that you love, if that's hard for you to do? There's a million ways that we make choices in our relationships. What I want you to think about is, what do you want people to see? And then start working on that. And then more broadly, the choices we make in the world. What do we do in our workplace? How do we treat people? What do we do in our communities? Do we help out in any kind of volunteer efforts around things that we care about? Are we a loving, kind neighbor? Do we give back? Are we ethical? There's a big one. Do you figure, oh, nobody's going to care, no one will know? Or people looking in, do they see you being really clear? Like, no, I don't lie and I don't cheat and I don't steal. I don't care if it's from a big corporation. I'm not doing that. Because you want to make sure that your ethics match your values and your choices in the world. So you can feel good about that. All right, so someone looking in on your life, what would they see? Where are you in terms of owning your choices, having healthy boundaries, really working on making sure your life reflects what you value? Making sure when they're looking in the window, so to speak, that you like what they see, because this is really about, do you like what you see? So this is not about people pleasing. This is not about externalizing our self-concept. This is about looking at our lives objectively. My old mentor used to tell me to picture myself as the main character in a movie, and what would the storyline be? What would my behavior be? What would my choices be? And that's a really powerful and sometimes difficult thing to do. So this is about being realistic with ourselves, where our walk is matching our talk, or not as much yet as we would like. So let's take a few moments and look at your life and see where you are today. Since we haven't done this in a while, here's what we're going to do. If you're in a place where you can sit and write your answers, that's lovely. But it's okay. If you're driving or you're walking or otherwise busy, that's fine too. Just notice the answers that come up in your heart. This exercise is going to be included in today's newsletter for you to download later anyway, so you'll have it. All right. For each sentence stem, I want you to come up with 2 to 4 very quick endings to each stem. Just do it really quickly. Trust whatever comes. Don't start worrying about what the best answers are, what you should answer. You want to tap into your real truth here. So for an example, if I gave you the sentence starter, if I were to really look at my fears this week, what may come up for you very quickly is, oh, I'd see some fear of rejection, maybe of failing. Wow, I'd feel so much better coming clean with myself around all this. Or I'd have to upend the fears and get brave if I want my life to be better. So allow whatever comes up, good, bad, ugly, scary, lovely, insightful, whatever. Just allow whatever truth comes and don't be afraid of it. Nothing's going to come to you that you're not ready to hear. I promise you that. All right. So here we go. Ready? Number 1. If someone were to look into my life right now, they would see. If someone were to look into my life now, they would see. Number 2, if I looked at the fear I have around really owning my choices. If I were to look at the fear I have around really owning my choices. And number 3, if I took just 10% more responsibility for what I choose this week, if I took just 10% more responsibility for what I choose this week, okay, so how was that? Were you surprised by what came up? These are simply to get you digging down and creating deeper awareness around your core truth, your vulnerable truth. The fears, the beliefs that are there and sometimes buried but are running your life. So there are more to this list, and they're in the download available in the newsletter. So today we talked about how if people were looking in on your life, that they could tell that you take responsibility for your choices or not. This means by looking at the quality of your relationship with yourself and others, how much you are open, humble, and teachable, or maybe defensive and guarded. Your boundaries, both external and internal, reveal a great deal about how you live your life, as well as your ability to manage conflict and to problem solve. We also did an experiential exercise to get you digging deeper into your choice-making process. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have some good takeaways to work on, and I hope that if you've been doing work on this, that you're really proud of yourself. This is the life-changing stuff. If you don't already get the newsletter, make sure you sign up at ownitpowercast.com or hit me up on social and I'll send you one. And there you can get the bonus download. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.